Welcome back to the Too Old to Be Playing Computer Games Yet I Still Am Gamer Muscle YouTube channel. Now, part of getting older is that you spend more and more time playing simulators, and they get more and more boring as you age, so you kind of gravitate from Call of Duty to racing simulators, then you go to flight simulators, and just before you die, you find yourself playing Train Simulator. We're not quite there yet, so we are in Xplane 11 here using Fly Inside XP, which is the Xplane version of Fly Inside, letting you use the Oculus Rift or the HTC VIVE through OpenVR with Xplane 11. And I thought it'd be interesting for this video to talk about the latest version of Fly Inside XP and how we're finding it, what's changed from the earlier versions that we tried, and if indeed Xplane 11 is playable in virtual reality. First things first, what I really noticed with Fly Inside XP is that it actually works really well now. They seem to have eliminated a lot of the bugs that you used to have previously where there'd be occasional crashes, and they seem to have also improved the performance. I don't know how much of that is from Fly Inside XP giving more options and how much of that is from Xplane 11 being a lot further in its development since we last checked out in VR, but it definitely runs a lot better now and a lot smoother. Now, of course, you know, it is a flight simulator and it wasn't designed for VR out of the box, so you're not going to be hitting that 90 frames a second unless you really do turn all the graphics down to essentially 1998 level flight simulator quality, where you just have a texture on the floor and you use your imagination for the feeling of flying. But because Fly Inside XP has a really awesome integrated asynchronous time warp system, separate to the Oculus Rift's asynchronous space warp and separate to the asynchronous time warp that you find on the VIVE, even if you're only hitting, say, 35 frames a second, which tends to be what we were getting for the most part in the built-up areas, it's actually really comfortable to play. I also found that Fly Inside XP did a really good job of cutting out the game if you do get big stutter or anything that would lock up the tracking, and it puts you to the Fly Inside XP menu screen until the simulator's back up to speed and it's comfortable to play. Now, it's not perfect, and you do get the occasional stutter still, but it's pretty much as good as I can imagine it could be, given that this is add-on software and not core to the simulator. Also, I would say that if you're able to play flight simulators in the first place, even when they're running completely flawlessly without getting any motion sickness, then a little bit of stutter is probably not going to affect you. Flight simulators, in my opinion, are probably the worst VR titles when it comes to triggering motion sickness, because not only do you have the forwards and backwards, up and down, but you've then got the roll and everything else. So when you're low level flying, if anything's going to give you motion sickness, flight simulators are probably the title to do that. Fortunately, I drink lead and my stomach is impervious now to motion sickness, it would seem. So those of you that have basically destroyed your brain through years of virtual reality, don't worry about it. This is actually pretty decent now. Outside of the fact that you actually feel like you're inside of a plane, which is bloody fantastic and possibly one of the best things about playing flight simulators in VR, using VR with any simulator, it actually feels like you're there as opposed to playing a game on a screen. We've talked about that previously and that hasn't changed, so if you want to know, well, basically just want to see me being hyperactive and screaming at how good it is, check out our other video, I'll put it in the video description. So outside of that amazing aspect of feeling like you're in the plane, one thing that really caught me by surprise is that Fly Inside XP has hand tracking built into it. So if you've got touch controllers, you can just play the simulator with the touch controllers on their own completely. To the point actually where you can use the joystick on the touch controllers to fly the yoke, and then you can use the hands to actually touch buttons and dials in the game. Now, unfortunately, though it's really nice having hand presence, and it's actually quite incredible just the detail that Xplane 11 has in terms of the amount of usable buttons and even a fully functioning glove compartment in this plane, unfortunately, it does come across as rather gimmicky, and I'd just much rather use my HOTAS. Now, obviously, not everyone has a HOTAS, so I think it's nice that it's included, and it does, as I say, let you play Xplane without a joystick, so it's really good for people that have just got the touch controllers and maybe wanted to get into Xplane better than using a mouse and keyboard. But for me, you know, you'd be much better off with like a T-Flight HOTAS stick, or, you know, just a really bog standard joystick. And in some ways, I actually prefer just using my mouse and clicking on dials, because I seem to get much better control than trying to use the floaty hands. Maybe it's just something that needs a little bit more development. I think initially they designed it with leap motion in mind rather than the touch controllers, so that might be why it operates in a somewhat funky way when you use the touch controllers with it. So maybe it'll improve in the future. It's a really nice idea, has massive potential, but as it is right now, mouse and HOTAS for me seems to be the way to go. But ultimately, nothing really compares to the general experience of playing a flight simulator in VR versus 2D. I would say you sort of have to be around about 2,500 to 3,000 feet, at which point it almost looks photoreal. You do, of course, get the issue of resolution with the VR headset still. The best solution I found with Fly Inside was to just run the simulator with no AA and then run 4x multi-sampling on the Fly Inside side. I would say definitely don't use FXAA, because that makes everything look horrendous and really out of focus, and it's probably give you a bit of eye strain over time. With the resolution set higher and the multi-sampling, I think it's almost there on the cockpit dial side. I mean, you do have to stick your face into the dials, because obviously aeroplanes have quite small detailed dials. They're not like driving simulators where everything's got ginormous glowing buttons and you know, it's designed to just glance down and be really clear. There's a lot more information and detail on the cockpit dials in a plane, so you do really have to stick your face almost sort of 25-30 centimetres away from the dials, as if you're an old age pensioner that's just stolen a Cessna. I'm sure I can see how high we are. Oh, no, there's the tree, we're all dead, sorry. But it's usable. The key thing is it's at a level where it's usable. I think hardcore flight sim nuts, they will of course complain about it, but then you could load up apps in separate windows and use the window system that Fly Inside has to see things more clearly. It's not ideal, but you know, it's VR, it's first gen, it's getting there, and it's only going to get better. So if that's something you really care about, you probably stick to screens, but then you'd use VR for the experience side of flight simulation and the awareness side of it. If you're using it as a training tool, I can't think of anything that gives you that, you know, how you move your face, how you look around the cockpit, how you look around the airports before you take off and everything. I can't think of anything that simulates that whole process as well as using a VR headset. Says the person whose flight knowledge is based on 3 YouTube videos. But there you go, take it or leave it. My opinion is with Fly Inside Xplane, it really does elevate the fun of playing Xplane to a whole nother level. It makes things like noticing your input on the yoke and how smooth you're landing. The distance you are from the ground is immediately intuitive because it's obviously in 3D. You actually get a really good sense for the shape of the aircraft that you're flying, be it one of the small planes or the 747s and the larger passenger planes. Not tried the helicopter yet in VR actually, we'll have to do that at some point. You can move the camera around inside the cockpit and see what it's like from the co-pilot's seat, or sitting in the back and fly as if you have strangely long arms and legs. But it's absolutely fantastic in my opinion, and if you're into flight simulators, and specifically if you're into Xplane 11, then you know, you would have to try this. You would be absolutely crazy not to try this. If you're more of a casual person that's not really into flight sims but you just want the general experience, what I would say is just download the demo of both Xplane 11 and Fly Inside XP. You can get the demos completely free, and then you can see if it's something that will draw you in and destroy your life through making you buy even more expensive peripherals that make your partner want to kill you. If she didn't kill you for the steering wheel, she'll kill you for the HOTAS. Regardless, to answer the initial question, does it work in VR? Is Fly Inside XP good? Yes it is. Try the demo, give it a go. Let me know what you want to hear in the comments for future videos in Xplane 11. We'll be playing it in VR. But until then, don't forget to subscribe, likey, dislikey. Goodbye.